Okay, so TGIF, thank God it's Friday, and welcome everyone to the Hunters Hour. My name is Sylvia Munoz. I'm the CMO of Crypto Hunters. And Hunters, this is Sylvia, and I have the pleasure to be with women leaders in the industry. I have Silvana Lara from Microsoft and Monique Abrams, Director of Marketing of Configure Tech. So it is a pleasure to have a panel of all women. So welcome, girls.
Thank you
Welcome.
so much for having me last minute. I'm
No,
really
you're
glad
more
to
than
be here.
welcome to be here. And so yes, this is the Hunters Hour. So everyone is this is your first Hunters Hour. What we do is that we just start talking. We just share our thoughts of what's going on in the industry.
Mhm.
And one of the things and the highlights that I would like to do today is that we hit 30K on Bitcoin today. So there's a lot of hype with a 10% yield in people's portfolios, the ones who were doing different transactions this week. So congratulations for those who were investing.
Mhm.
Are we in a bull run? Are we not in a bull run? Let's see. But today it's not about that. Today we will discuss about Web3 and Web3 implementation in the different sectors. So the first thing that I would like to do is give the floor to you ladies so you can present yourself, what you do, who you are. And I would like to start with you, Monique. Thank you so
Oh,
much.
yes, thank you. I was going to offer that to Silvana. Actually, full disclosure, this is the first time this year that I've worked in an American-based company, and the last few years I've been working international. And a lot of times I've noticed working with international teams, the introduction is always a little bit different. It's more team focused, and then my team did this, or I was a part of this team. And I've noticed in America, I've really had to reset my mind to pump myself back up and just sort of say, hey, I accomplished this as a woman and as a leader. And I wanted to say that just having a panel of women, I'm not sure if that's also a struggle that you guys have had to just sort of pump myself up and just sort of healthily stroke my ego of these are the things that I've done. This is who I am, and this is what I've accomplished in life. But basically, starting with that, I'm currently the director of marketing of Configure Tech. At Configure Tech, we work with something that we call business AI. We work with AI implementations in business, things like hyper automation and IT services. Um, Before that, I worked with some big brands like Nike and Playboy and Samsung, as well as did some consulting with NFT projects, some metaverse projects, and mostly in gaming and entertainment. So I've been kind of all over the board in different industries and just have had a great time. I'm very into sustainable marketing and sustainable business practices, as well as human centric leadership. I'm also a very big fan of just personal anything anime or story related. So any NFT project that is anime based or game based, I'm all over it. But that's me. I hand the floor over to Silvana.
Hi, thank you so much, Moni. Great to know you. Great to meet you today. Sylvia, thank you very much for the invitation. As Sylvia mentioned before, I'm in responsible in Microsoft for leading public sector industry in the South America region. It's called the Spanish-speaking South America. So it's great to be working with citizens, be working with governments, be working with the health and the education system. And in my background, I've been studying leadership, sustainability, and I've been in exponential organizations working specific projects towards how are we expanding and amplifying with technology areas of productivity. So I have been all throughout my life in these technology scenarios. So it's great to be in this conversation today with you all. I work very hardly also towards closing the gender gap. So it's super empowering to see here three women that represents these efforts towards closing the gender gap. So Silvia, very pleased to be here with you in the panel.
Thank you, Silvana. And I would like to tell everyone that I always get something personal when I do this podcast or Hunter's Hour. And for me, Silvana has always been an inspiration. She's from my same city. And I'm the biggest girl fan of Silvana all my life. And I call her my friend. But she is one of the voices of, as she said, to close the gender gap, and not only in general work environments, but as well in our sector. We are in the tech sector, and that is something that we will talk about, and that's why this panel is so important, because we are representing girls. So with no further ado, let's talk about Web3, girls. And Monique, thank you so much for sharing your story. And believe me, we feel that every day.
Mm,
That's not only you.
yeah.
So
It,
we're going to start with the basics, because I feel that we need to start with the basics, because I think that even in the times that we have the most uh access to information, we have the most misconception of terms and what actually is accurate. So our first question, oh no, no, not that one, is what is Web3 for you?
oh,
So who would
Okay,
like to start?
okay, if you want.
I'll go first. You go first.
Okay,
Sylvia.
perfect, Manny. Thank you. So, I think Web Zero is what breaks the technology of the last years, this breaking point between the technology of the last years and this new technology area, where all the technologies and all the solutions and all the amplifiers of productivity join together in a universe leveraged by solutions and services, where we find the decentralization, the importance of the data as a new currency, but we find also blockchain, but we find all these technologies and how all of these join together within an ecosystem to amplify technology as a lever of growth and productivity. That's for me. That's what I understand and how I share with the extended teams
Mhm.
what Web 3.0 is, um, because I think it's this new era of technology.
Absolutely. That's a beautiful answer.
I totally agree with you, Silvana, and you touched something very important, and it's something that people do not talk too much about, and it's the history behind Web Zero, where we started in Web Zero with .com, and where we actually call users just customers that are actually feeding out of information, out of content. And then we go on a phase of Web 2, where we see content produced, but it's still very centered, very centralized. And Web 3, in some way, for me, it's the time where decentralization, it starts to happen, and ownership becomes happening again for users, and and getting power to people on their own data and on their own experience of the things that they were developing in Web 2. So that for me it's something that I would like to highlight, um, as well, about Web 3. So in Web 2, for example, we had an end user. In Web 3, we see a decentralization. We see develop an ecosystem where there's a democratization of internet. So that for me is Web 3, democratization of
Mhm.
the internet. So that's Web 3 for me, at least.
That's also a beautiful answer. I'll jump in on that question. I love the idea of bringing in the other definitions for Web 1, Web 2, to just sort of compare the contrast to further explain Web 3. I know from my understanding, which is very rudimentary, is I know Web 1 was sort of equivalent to the internet and static pages. We would go to the internet, we would maybe look something up, and you'd have a static page. And so Web 2 would be when we were able to start engaging more with the internet, like social media. We were under centralized um, organizations such as Facebook, or somebody's website or somebody's forum. We could start engaging with other centralized entities, but it was more of a conversation now that we were having with the internet versus this one-way street with Web 1. With Web 3, I sort of see like that push for decentralization, meaning giving ownership and IP back to the people versus the centralized entities in Web 2. So for instance, I hate to use Facebook as an example, but it's just the best example. When we engage with Facebook, we are building Facebook up. We're not building up our own IP and our own ownership. So Web3 is our opportunity for us to engage in a conversation, and how we engage with the conversation belongs to us. That is our IP.
Exactly.
Right. So, and to continue the conversation, I do see Web 4 and Web 5 is still being kind of a fluid conversation a little bit. I haven't seen very definite definitions. But for me, once we get to that point or that end point, I sort of see Web3 as this phase where we're kind of like early adopters of this decentralization, and we're having to do a lot of learning, to engage in this decentralization. I see by the time that we get to 4 and 5 and we start integrating it into mainstream and mobile apps, that a lot of that extra learning is just going to be as normal as everything that we do right now, to sort of carry on that conversation. But that is my my broad higher view of what I think Web3 is for me. But the most important part of Web3 for me is IP for the individual. That's what speaks to me most sadly.
Yes. And with that, it brings us to our next question. What is the misconception you see when it comes to the terms? And this one, Silvana, this was a fight that I had with her. Not a fight, discussion
a,
that I had with
a
her.
healthy debate.
I had with her about 2 years ago. I think it was 2 years ago that we discussed
That's
it.
right. That's right. That's right.
Misconceptions you see when it comes to Web3, metaverse, and blockchain.
I think that it's basically an evolution of that conversation that we had that time, Sylvie. And I think it's not one or the other or one against the other. I think it's just how these scenarios, if confluent, how do these scenario have synergies? It's
Mhm.
all of them are valid. All of them are valid. In fact, I think now you're missing one there, that it's AI, definitely. that is coming to make this
100%.
inflection point similar to the magnitude of the personal computing, of the internet, of the mobile devices, of all of these. I think at the end is how all of these concepts, how all of these technologies, all of these solutions integrate into an amplified technology offering that is basically what Web 3.0 puts under our disposition to guarantee productivity, to guarantee well-being to citizens, and to guarantee this world 2.0 basically, or 3.0, however you call it. I think the world is experiencing right now increasing economic complexity, and what I see right now is all these technologies are serving the ecosystems in order to guarantee that we mitigate all these possible impacts coming from these complex moments that we are living right now. I think all these new technologies, new solutions, this AI, are empowering us and are revolutionizing what we do today and how we do things today. Even the types of work, bringing people greater satisfaction, providing productivity, being differentiators to organizations. Definitely what we're seeing in this moment, however you call it, if it's Web 3.0 or whatever, what we're seeing right now is very agile advancements in large models of productivity. What we are doing right now is trying to capture all the imagination and innovation from every single citizen, and we are unlocking new possibilities across all sectors, all segments. We're unlocking creativity. We're unlocking new areas within segments and industry sectors. I think that we are under an exponential a scenario that we must leverage as individuals in order to fulfill this biggest mission that in the case of Microsoft we have, that is to empower every organization and every individual to achieve more. So I think that we are in a super moment in time. This is a great momentum that we're living, and if it's metaverse, if it's Web 3.0, AI, however you conceive it, however you understand it, I think at the end is how are we going to capitalize these technologies and these solutions and these new offerings in order to amplify our impact. This is the way that I'm understanding. And as you see in my answer, I'm super enthusiastic about this great moment that we're living right now in technology.
I find your explanation so refreshing in the sense that, you know, AI is a conversation that is very heavy in my industry and workplace and sector. And so far, it's still on the fence with how people feel about it. I've noticed that it's something that I've been playing around, you know, a little bit of wordplay, but I call it like this relentless evolution. And sometimes everyone's responding to it with a relentless resistance, or they're getting on board with the evolution and they're flowing with it and they're creating with it and they're partnering with it and they're finding excitement with it. And I love that when we get to that point where we can sort of flow with all of these changes, especially what AI is bringing to all of these sectors, and just kind of, I think, release a little bit of control. Like I feel like as people were really being challenged to be agile in so many ways that we previously were not. And so I think the idea of, you know, maybe probably challenging mostly to leaders, because we are accustomed to being in the front and leading and being in control, and having to lead in an agile manner is very challenging. And I know that definitely trickles down to our teams as well, because they sort of are expecting a level of structure in a way. So I feel like in a way we're all adapting in such a grand scale. So circling background, it's so refreshing to me to hear your enthusiasm about it, because not everybody has that perception, and I hold that perception. I'm very excited about how all of these things come together: AI, Web3, metaverse, blockchain, cryptocurrency. I think like the things that we can accomplish, I think can really circle back down to what I think is important for my objective is sustainability. Like I think ironically that AI, even though it's, you know, supposed to be robotic, I feel like a way when we are partnering with AI, it actually takes the robot out of the human, because it takes on things that we, you know, have implemented in our lives because of the industrial era of having to do these robotic movements of work, and now we get to come to work and be creative and innovative. And I think that is just so beautiful and so exciting. But I wanted to touch on that. But to answer the question, the misconceptions of Web3, metaverse, and blockchain, I have a really funny story about that actually, because when I entered into the current industry that I'm in, it's still a little bit separate from Web3. So it's, you know, it's actually IT implementation services, AI, automation, you know, business AI. And so they hadn't really, you know, merged into Web3 yet. And so I was trying to tell my team, let's get ahead of it. You know, just like any other business leader, you kind of want to, you know, have a trajectory and you want to get in front of it and you want to kind of meet it, you know, at the right time. And I remember that I saw an article about you know, merging some of these services with blockchain and cryptocurrencies. And I remember somebody saying to me, I was writing an article about, you know, sustainability and how you could use the blockchain to, you know, keep, you know, carbon neutrality, like count the, you know, account of carbon neutrality. And in the terms in the article I was writing, I was using terms like Web3, and they were like, oh no, this isn't Web3. I was like, what the blockchain is under the umbrella of Web3. What do you mean it's not Web3? So I've actually noticed that Web3 to a lot of people has been paired with NFTs, and NFTs have such a weird
You
relationship.
know why? You know
Yeah.
why? You know why they don't consider it Web3?
Why?
Because they don't understand the definition of blockchain and NFT.
Yep.
NFTs are not arts, they are contracts.
Right. Exactly. It's I was like, it's all under the same umbrella. They're not
And
different.
blockchain basically it's a ledger that tracks all these transactions
Yes.
that of assets in a public way.
Right. Absolutely. Thank you. But I thought that it just really shocked me that that they're that I think getting outside of Web3, because I was working in Web3 for several years straight, and then coming outside of Web3, I'm like, wow, people really don't know these terms. Like it's really basic. It's really NFT equals Web3, and that's a bad thing. Bad. You know, blockchain equals Bitcoin. That's bad for the environment. Bad. Like I'm like, wow, these the awareness of, you know, most people, it's still so very basic
And
and
actually
wrong and
and
wrong.
actually one of the reasons that we need to talk about sustainability is because blockchain has a lot to do with sustainability.
Oh,
In
absolutely.
order for sustainability for blockchain to work, there is a lot of machines, a lot of computers that are needed for these transactions to work. And this is something that I think Silvana can actually talk us a little bit more about. And these are discussions that happens that I know a lot of people don't want to talk about, that the impact that it has, but it starts only because they don't know the terms and they don't know what's behind the terms. So it's like, oh, it's just a funny picture. No, it's a contract. The important is not the image, it's the contract that you have. It's not a blockchain, it's the fact there is a ledger that it's following all the transactions in a public and safe way.
Hmm.
So yeah, so
Absolutely.
that's the reason that I wanted to do this question, because don't you think it's funny being in an era of having so much information? We're still very, we have a very superficial knowledge of very important topics that we hear every day.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. I was just thinking about that, that we have access to almost anything at our fingertips on the internet. But the way that we are, I guess, trained mentally through all of this short form information, we get all of these hits of information, but a lot of times we're not motivated to go deeper unless we have some sort of intrinsic motivation to go deeper into a topic. But on average, the most of us have heard parroted information about Web3 and NFTs. To think that you could really utilize the internet or any social media platform to create these sort of guerrilla style marketing campaigns and just take down anything that you really wanted to, basically troll something and just say, hey, today I'm going to attack NFTs and I'm going to say that every NFT is the very worst thing for the environment. And I'm going to parrot all of this information across Twitter or YouTube or Instagram or Facebook. And then that information is all that anybody ever hears, to the point where they've already had hundreds of touch points. So what's their motivation to go any further with that information? So I think that that's something that that's a big battle. That is a big battle for Web3, honestly.
Okay, so
I
next
think that
question. This is a very exciting question for me because this is something that we're implementing in Crypto Hunters, and it's the core of our app um, and our reality TV that is actually produced by Hollywood production company. Just a little bit of our project. So, what can you tell us about digital twins? And I would love you girls to tell me about digital twins for you.
Oh, I will pass that over to you, Silvana.
okay, okay, perfect. So I think digital twins definitely is one of the many ways that we have right now leveraging technology of replicating scenarios, being productive, being efficient, and being sustainable. So this is a model that is right now leveraging many industries, many sectors in order to drive efficiencies and prove new ways of approaching to solutions, basically. What we're seeing right now is this is also being obviously part of the evolution into the AI, and all these co-pilots and all these new initiatives that are in the market right now and that we are seeing as part of our day to day. The digital twins right now are one of the elements that is driving progress in industries as transportation, as construction, as research, for example. The digital twins are today leveraging machine learning, are leveraging AI models in order to accomplish new tasks or new ways to approach to solutions. So what we're seeing right now is in these new elements is generating like a realistic scenario, a pseudo realistic scenario in which, for example, a typical use case of digital twin is in the medical sectors, for example, where the students are able to approach and are able to build skills working in these scenarios that are very, very similar to the real world. So I think that where we are approaching there is at the end a scenario that will drive exponential growth in sectors that are today very expensive when you try to replicate the scenarios in a physical one. So basically, the digital twins right now are a way to develop new talent, to develop pertinent talent and new skills to approach solution in a more efficient way. And I was just thinking as I was speaking that today we have these very interesting scenarios where we have um, approach, for example, as GitHub, where we have a code that is available to be evolved, to be enriched, and digital twins are being enriched by all these scenarios. So where we're seeing right now is the evolution of of the digital twin that we had even some years or some months ago. We're seeing something boosted by AI right now. So I think that
Yeah.
that will help a lot.
Exactly. So, for example, for us in Crypto Hunters, and this is something that I had to do in the beginning. So, basically, Crypto Hunters is basically right now focused on two different products. One is a reality TV with AI technology implemented, and an app with AI, a multiplayer with AI, augmented reality, and digital twins technology. So the idea behind it is that if I'm playing, I can be in New York, and if I'm in New York, the person in my house playing the laptop can see me as an avatar within New York, which is giving them the opportunity as well to experience the world and connecting with other people. Um, so this is something that I enjoy very much, and and Sylvanas, it's just a representation. It's a digital representation of the physical world, but what it does is it breaks the limits of the possibilities that some of what can someone achieve or experiment. I
In
said,
fact, Sylvie, let me include some additional comments there, because you opened the conversation with a word that I really enjoy listening to it, and is the democratization. And this digital twin is democratizing many of the learnings and knowledge that people were just restricted to receive because they were not able to experience the physical interaction with the scenario. Right now, with digital twins, this is allowing to break these blockers that we used to have and be able to democratize learning.
That's a
yes.
beautiful idea.
Thank you. So, I'm gonna just jump to one question, and it's how decentralized. This is more financial questions as we're talking about Web3. Of course, we need to talk about DeFi. So, girls, how decentralized finances will change the future of how we handle our finances today, especially with all the fuss about Bitcoin. What is your personal opinion about this?
Oh goodness. This I'm well, obviously I think that these are probably, predictions. So take it as such, not as this is exactly how it's going to happen. But for me, I sort of see us taking the idea of ownership to the next level. And I to explain that I have an actual cute little story with my brother. Actually, a few years ago, whenever we started learning about, our wallets, our own cryptocurrency wallets. He's a musician, and I used to as well, and so we sort of recognized that all of the little steps, all the transactions, it was brand new to us, and so we sort of recognized that there was an element of muscle memory in the process. And so, like kids, like we were kids, we'd go back and forth, and we would just like send transactions back and forth to each other, small ones, until we became so comfortable, because we recognized that the error would be is we would be in a hurry, and we would want to send a large amount of money, and we would make a mistake because it was new to us. And I think that one of the things that people are afraid about with decentralized finance is that there's no, bank teller, basically, to say, there's this issue and I need you to fix it. All of those, that responsibility falls onto your shoulders. But I think that going back to the conversation between Web3, Web4, and Web5, I think that the idea of muscle memory and us getting used to taking ownership over that again, I think that will release the fear that we have on the idea of decentralized finance and taking ownership again over our own money and over our own finances. And I think that goes in groups and organizations as well. I think that it might be a really neat opportunity for companies to create really unique, maybe democracy, a group democratize. I can't say it right. Democratized. Thank you. Democratize financial systems that will probably help everybody involved in that collective. So I think it actually also lends a bit of creativity on how we can manage our finances on an individual or a group or a societal level, and we can design those things to the benefit of people and not the benefit of centralized institutions. But then again, the same thing. That ownership falls on us, still to us to align ourselves with systems that work for our benefit, so that it puts that power back into our hands. Same theme, all with Web3, putting the power back into our hands, but with that is a level of responsibility, and I think that'll really shine a light on how often we have relied on centralized institutions because we were trained to manage things for us, and in exchange for taking something from us, large portions of our time, large portions of our money. So I think that'll probably blow that entire perception up in our mind. But that's about as far as I've gotten with that question. Honestly, I will pass that back to you ladies.
Thank you,
I think that
Silvana.
I think just to add an additional comment there, I think that everything at the end, if it's finance, if it's whatever, what we're seeing right now is a trend to everything coming back to the center. That is either the
Mhm.
customer, the investor, the citizen, and everything is like going to its spaces right now, back again. But I think that we need
Mhm.
to work very hard because we are gonna face the challenge with DeFi that we're facing with all new technologies, that is regulation. Right now, what we're facing is innovation that is going very, very accelerated, and a regulation that has opened its its path of agility, and we need to accelerate regulation, to accelerate the norms, to accelerate all the compliance environment structure that we need to have in order to operate this in a very responsible way. So I totally agree. So going back to the investor and having these new elements of management and empowerment is also challenging other areas as regulation.
Yes, and I agree with you. It's that regulation is cutting up with how fast the market and the decentralization has been developing, and we're just getting into a point that society it's will need to sort of like to how do I say it, to adopt, let's not say adopt, but to getting to a point to understand that there are certain things that of course will be for the benefit of the user but will still be regulated, and that it's a personal opinion for me when it comes to decentralized finances. So we're almost done with this AMA, and I have a very special question for you girls. So the question is, what do you think about your role as women leaders in a tech industry?
Oh, that's such a good question. Would you like to go first, Silvana?
Okay, perfect. So I think that in the industry we are experiencing a need to have more women motivated to work in technology and to see the benefits of technology impact, not only as part of their day to day and as part of a way to be productive, but also seeing it as a way to transcend, a way to have um, a, um, a way to have a, a, a way to be part of the story, a way to be part of the story of our world. So we need to be able to engage more women into this type of disciplines. Women is right now seeing these disciplines as very demanding in terms of time, very impactful in terms of way of work-life balance, and we need to work hard in order to continue motivating more women into these types of areas of development. I think that this is the first step. This is the foundational that we need to work all of us on. I think that we need to be an active voice, sharing all experiences, all of the good experiences we have as women working in the different areas, in the different disciplines. Technology is one of the areas, but there are many areas where the gender gap is very challenging, and we need to have as a priority building constantly pertinent talent. And by pertinent talent, I mean talent that is needed right now in the different areas of organizations or of sectors. And we need to share with the little girls, because this all starts with creating a new vision in our girls, in our daughters, in all the girls that we have around. Because what we need is motivation. We need to generate passion. We need to create a culture of women impacting the leadership in the organizations.
Thank you, Silvana. Monique, do you want to go?
Oh yes, I would love to. First off, I love your answer. Silvana was so beautiful. I know for me, I am really stubborn and bullheaded. When it came to approaching, you know, my climb into leadership positions, was just very full of, I want to say, a lot of mind games. There was a lot of mind games, and I remember thinking to myself, I don't know what exactly drove me. I think it's just part of my personality to sort of, if somebody says I can't do something, I'm just sort of like, well, okay, well, watch, I'll show you, otherwise. But I do want to say that in my experience, it was always, in the past, it was usually a man that would notice, hey, this is somebody that I wanted to invest in, because there weren't a lot of women in the positions that I was pursuing. There weren't any female mentors. And what I noticed, what was really hard, is those men did not know how to support me in that climb. And so I had to figure out how to do that myself. And I do find it very rewarding that now that I just turned 40 this year, I find it very rewarding that I'm in a position where I can actually support women. Because that was something that I did not have, in my climb into leadership roles. And I find that being able to support another woman, in roles that are typically male dominated is it's almost a little healing for me, in a way. And I do find myself on a lot of panels where I'm the only woman. I find myself on a lot of teams where I'm the only woman, and there's always a little bit of struggle in the beginning. I still do the same thing where I have to recognize a lot of the team is international, and a lot of those men come from countries where they are not accustomed to working with women, and I have to make those adjustments. I recognize that there are things that I could, not acknowledge that, and I could just approach some of those situations as I normally would. But I actually think to myself, by me just being here, these people are adapting. They're adapting to seeing women in the workplace, and I think that that's something that, that really brought some peace into my mind, thinking I don't have to go into every location and throw it upside down. Sometimes just by being there and by just showing up, like you're already making a huge change. And another thing to top that, I think as women, we kind of shortchange ourselves. I know I do all the time. I'm constantly telling myself, stop, stroke your ego a little bit. Monique, you've actually done a lot to get here. But it was actually a very kind male coworker recently that brought to my attention that in his experience, he hasn't experienced a lot of women in tech, but the few women that he has have broken through the glass ceiling, and they tend to be the most skilled people on the team because they had to work 3, 4, 5 times as hard as everyone to get there. And so I think that as women we have to kind of remember those things, that it might take us longer to get there, but once we get there, we definitely probably very much deserve to be there. And also by being there, we have this very unique mentorship role for all of the women that follow us, that we're of the first group of generation that can actually mentor other women, and not have to be in those weird situations where we're the only women in the group. I think that's a very beautiful first for us, and I definitely congratulate, and my hands are up to the women that even came before me that were the very, very first people to be there whatsoever. Like I couldn't even imagine how hard that must have been, because it was hard enough for me being among, of the first, being the first. That is just amazing. But I think that these are conversations that are just so important for us to have. Having those all female panels are so beautiful. Us showing up to the panels where sometimes it can be intimidating and it's all men, and just showing up anyways, that's also a really beautiful thing. So definitely love that we're doing this, and I hope that we all continue to do it, because I feel like all of us have strong voices that need to be heard. So
I totally agree. And just one comment there. This week, coincidentally, I comment over a Harvard paper regarding women disclosing of the gender gap. There was something that really highlighted my attention, and was women. Women access recruitment process when they are overqualified for the positions, and this opened a conversation that I had with a friend this week regarding why does this happen? Why do we have to wait until we are overqualified to feel
right.
confident to go into a position? We need to be risk takers. And when I started reading some articles this week, I read one that shared basically about the our position and need to have strong networks for support, for advice. We need mentors, we need sponsors, we need affiliation groups, we need a lot of things in order to gain this confidence. So what you mentioned of the mentorship program or the sponsorship programs is super important, and I think that we need to build constantly over that confidence and trust in ourselves in order to be able to be real risk takers, because the risk taking is the one that will take us to the next level, and it's being able not only to access the position of leadership, but to stay on the position of leadership and continue our growth plan. Because I really think that this is the next challenge that we will be facing, not only going into the leadership position, but the sustainability in that
Oh
leadership.
my God.
Oh, absolutely.
100%.
Yes.
I girls, I want to take what you girls just said, because I think you both mentioned a few things that I'm a little bit younger than you, just 2 years younger. I gotta say, and Silvana knows this because I have the pleasure to have a lot of conversations about leadership and work with her, and thankfully with crypto hunters I have the luck that I have a boss, a male boss that believes in me. But I gotta say that the respect in the past has been a lot of work, and
Mm-hmm.
7 years ago, I was in another company, and it was the first time that I saw that the president of the company was a technology company, an aerospace technology company. I asked the president of the company, what do you do as a woman to get here? Or were you afraid as because you were a girl? And she said, no, I was just better than any other man. My condition as a woman had nothing to do. Maybe this was a little bit hard for me, but at the same time, it taught me that we need to also not be victims of our own condition as women and make sure that we have something that is called sorority, that
Mhm.
it's something that we forget sometimes. And this is something that Silvana was telling me a few weeks ago, when we were talking, that it's funny that in the dictionary we have the word sorority. I'm sorry, now the words are like
Uh-huh.
and
It's
it's
a hard
something that it doesn't exist for men, because men just have that. And it's in the roles as women leaders, it's just not just to get there. You get the job, but how do you deal with, oh, you're being emotional,
Oh gosh.
or you are too strong, or how do you do to handle that? And that's my experience, and I have learned from that. And one of the reasons that I've been able to handle that is because, thank God, I have a network of a strong women that are leading,
Hmm.
like Silvana. And this is something that people need. People need to hear other women. We need to open spaces for other younger professionals to listen what it is to work in the tech environment and not be scared. And also
I think
familiarize male coworkers.
Right.
The women can do the work just the same.
I think, Sylvie, that we are taking very practiced steps. I think in most of the organizations towards creating inclusive cultures and providing a as much as they can equal opportunities for all employees. I think that we are working towards it. We have a challenge right now, and we need the three of us to continue working intentionally and
Hmm.
to motivate others to work, and is building skills, because the worst that can happen is that we get into an inclusive culture and the women does not have the skills to occupy the positions. So these two things need to be worked on parallel, and is creating the inclusive culture and at the same time having women building skills, new skills, leadership skills, technology skills, all these working on their education structure in order to be ready when the position opens or when the opportunity comes. But we need to be ready. We need to be ready, and I think that we have a gap there still too. So we need to be intentional in building our development plans, our careers, our education path.
Hmm.
There's an intentionality that needs to come from our side as women.
Silvana, why do you think there's a skills gap? I wanna hear your opinion about it when it comes to women.
I'm sure, Sylvie, that I think that the last number that was formalized was 70%, 17% of women in leadership positions in the technology industries worldwide. I think that that was the last number that was shared um, in the KPIs, and I think that this is not only because of that we are not given the same opportunities. I think that this is also a result that we are not ready to capture the opportunities.
Hmm.
So this is, and in fact, look at LinkedIn. There we have evidence. you see open positions, and some of them, when you go and double click into the position, you see that there's nobody asking for an opportunity there. Eh, and it's not only about women. Maybe I've been unprecise, and maybe I've been reducing the scope. I think it's also a thing about men. I think the post-pandemic challenge us to build new skills, and we need to work intentionally in building new skills, no matter what gender you are, because there are new opportunities in the market, and we need to be ready to capture these new opportunities
Mhm.
that are a result of the post-pandemic.
That's really interesting. While you were talking, I was thinking that question about the skills gap. I think that I know my difference between like when I'm mentoring a younger female versus when I was mentored by men, for instance. I recognize that a lot of their leadership um, training was centered around the bro club, is what I call it, or the brotherhood club. And it was very like alpha, beta, omega, top down structures. And I noticed that whenever I entered into leadership positions, I would receive feedback of how refreshing it was to feel more of a give and take relationship with my staff and sort of having a little bit more collaboration and cooperation. And I think that maybe like a female, our the way that our brains are designed are to be a little bit more social. And I don't like to say it's like a female only or male only. It's more of a spectrum, and we can fall in the spectrum. It's just in general, I think as women we're more accustomed to not pushing power in the same way or pushing a leadership position in the same way. And so I think going on between the gender skills, learning how to work with different genders, I think that that's probably one thing that each of us need to learn, is how differently a man might tend to lead versus how a woman might tend to lead. And I've personally witnessed where I'm often the first girl or woman to enter into an all male team, and how just my mere presence disrupts how they do everything. I won't do anything, I won't behave any different, but just the fact that I'm there, they all of a sudden pause in how they would typically approach a conflict or typically approach a problem. And I see that conflict in their face, and I see that it builds this inner tension and resentment for me, even though I have not done anything. And I think that that kind of goes maybe also the other way around. Sometimes where when we're dealing with men, they want to we want a little bit of conversation in, well, why am I doing this, or can you help me understand this? And it's more like, no, here's the directive and go, you know type of thing. And I don't think either way is wrong. I have full respect of all leadership styles. I think everything has a purpose, but I think that when we're creating these inclusive environments, that just like we were mentioning, we really have to broaden our skills when it comes to diversifying a team in that way, from different backgrounds, even not just genders, but just even different backgrounds coming from different countries. And now that we're doing more, now that work is going remote, we're having a lot more international and global interactions as well. So that's a whole different conversation. But I think also for women, like, we haven't really fully transitioned outside of the burdens, I think, of traditional female stereotypes. Like, I know, like, for me personally, I'm a single mom to two daughters, and so my career goal track has also been dealing with those stereotypes as well, not having a spouse for support and having the full burden of managing a home in the background as well. So I would often be working with male partners who their spouse took care of their children, their spouse took care of their home, and their only responsibility was just their workplace. And here I have to do multiple things. And even if a woman, is with their partner, a lot of times they still have the burden of the majority of the home carrying, even if they're, are a dual income home. Like those are stereotypes and patterns that I think is that would really really lend to having that female support, where we really need to kind of check each other as women and be like, well, why do you assume that you have to take all of that responsibility on yourself, type of thing. Like those are conversations that I think other women, like we need to have that with each other as mentors and as peers, to just sort of because we're the only ones that acknowledge those conditions that we tend to hold that hold us back a lot of times. But that's I could go on and on about that topic, so I am going to digress before I go on too much. But that is my personal struggle with women as leaders. Is for me it's how do we learn how to lead by increasing those skills gaps, and then also learning how to manage other things as well that are typically female responsibilities. Like how does that balance look like?
But I also want to add something, and I can notice it in my current team, and it's that men are changing as well. Not
Oh, I
everyone,
totally agree.
and not as much as we want to, but men are changing.
Mm-hmm.
And and I can see it in my peers where I work, and I can see it even in the even in my CEO and founder of Crypto Hunters, given the opportunity and given the trust that he does. So I do think that we're going in that direction, but there's still a lot of things that we need to do, as we mentioned before. So, girls, we reached the end of this Hunter Hour. I would like to thank you very much for your time, for having 1 hour of your busy Friday to come and talk in this space that for me it's very important. I do this every Friday. We talk about different topics of technology and as well, Web3 or leadership. We bring different people from different audiences, and this video it will always be in YouTube, Twitter, and LinkedIn if you want to share it with your communities. My name is Sylvia. I'm the CMO of Crypto Hunters, and it's been a pleasure to having you here, Monique and Silvana. Thank you so much. And my dear audience and hunters, have a lovely weekend.
Thank you,
Bye
Sylvie.
bye.
Thank you, Monique.
Thank
Great to
you.
meet you.
It's so great to meet you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.